what's the best way to go about things? He finds himself a little spot where he has a lot of nettles, the stingy nettles, and he will eat the nettles and live in the cave, and like this he's not wasting any time. Let's see a little bit about his life story. What he was known for was this first half, it's not half, the first part of his life, which was basically his childhood and then immediately followed by the black magic acts, which then also drove him into spirituality actually. So he was born in Western Tibet. He was born to a quite prosperous family and everything was going great. So the first few pages of the book is just how amazing everything was, and amazing family and nice riches and beautiful love between the sister and Mila and the father and the mother, and everybody's very happy and it's great. The father dies when Milarepa is still a child, and from here everything goes down. As it used to be in those old days, it wouldn't be as straightforward as, okay, the father dies so the mother takes over, but usually there would be some sort of patron that would take over, and in the case of Milarepa's family that was his aunt and uncle, and they behaved very badly towards them. They basically just took all of their prosperous riches and basically sort of enslaved the two children and the mother. They would have very crappy food and very hard work to do day and night. They would be forbidden to educate themselves and so forth. So it was pretty malicious, pretty bad. And after many, many years of this, the mother is, of course, wailing in depression and so forth. Milarepa is starting to come of age. And whenever Milarepa would have moments of being happy, like, for example, coming home from the pub a little drunk with his friends and singing a little loudly, then the mother would just bring up, how can he be happy after all these years of hardship, and how horrible the uncle and aunt did towards them, and he should cry day and night. So it was a lot of emotional pressure for him in that way. And as he was still quite a bright young man, and known for his perseverance, the mother insisted that he goes and he learns sorcery, and then basically brings vengeance upon the aunt and uncle, taking them down. And Milarepa did, good son that he was, and learned all sorts of black magic rituals that allowed him to, kill people. This is the first thing that happened. He did a ritual in which 35 people died. Imagine how horrible that is. And he unleashed then also several hailstorms upon this region of birth. And somehow as this is going down, the mother becomes more and more revengeful. She's just like, yes, and now you killed these 35 people, including the aunt and uncle. And I think the aunt survived, maybe just the uncle died, but their children died. And their horses and everybody, like there's a whole disaster there. And she's like, okay, but that's not enough, because also the villagers laughed about us, so we will bring hailstorms and we will kill their crops. And so she will get more and more into it. And Milarepa, as he went with it, sort of wishing to obey and please the mother, went along and did all these horrible deeds. As then he came to regret his actions, he started to look around for some solutions, because basically this was one of the times where he was just hitting rock bottom and just feeling like, okay, it's horrible what I've done. I took lives and crops and, brought a lot of misery upon people. And the only way out of this, I know that, is if I work on solving this karma. Of course, as a good Buddhist from a Buddhist country, he knew that something must be done. It cannot just remain like that. So he was in search for a lama, and he found one, Lama Rongton, and that lama, he was quite a nice guy, and he immediately noticed, okay, this one, he belongs to Marpa, who was one of these quite renowned lamas, as you can imagine. Okay, he traveled to India and he came back with all this enlightening stuff, and Marpa was quite an impressive guy. Like, he was huge and very short-tempered, and everybody knew him for what a wild master he was. So the Lama Rongton sent Milarepa forward, and Marpa received him. It was even all sorts of auspicious dreams that he and his wife had before he arrived, and it was this moment of actually meeting in a field which Marpa had arranged, and Milarepa didn't know yet who he is. And it was so striking for Milarepa to see his guru for the first time that he just fainted on the spot. And it was a whole little scene of how Marpa arranged this meeting to go down. And finally, Milarepa was received into his house. Now, of course, you know, the story could just end here, and it's like, oh, great. And then he was with his master, and finally everything was good. Hopefully the mother relaxed at one point. Okay, great. But not at all did it go like this. But instead, Marpa really went in there, and he pushed Milarepa to an extremely, extremely, extremely hard degree. He didn't even give him initiation, of course, also seeing that it is needed to purify him, and Milarepa did share his story as well, so it was pretty clear that some purification needs to happen first. And Marpa considered the fastest way to do that is just to challenge him, and not just, ooh, I challenge you, why don't you do 100 push-ups, but like treating him extremely harshly, beating him up regularly. There are scenes in the book, terrible, where Marpa is just dragging him by the hair out of the door and stuff like that. Like, it's really, really harsh. And he would have him work like a donkey, really bad. So much so that Milarepa had his whole back open with sores and wounds and carrying stones, and in the cold winter of Tibet and so forth. It was pretty gnarly what he had to go through. Through these trials and ordeals, though, he purified extremely fast, sticking with the master, even though he was just doubting basically the whole situation continuously. So when you read those pages in the book, it's just continuously, okay, this is horrible, this is impossible, maybe the master is not the master, maybe he's completely crazy, he keeps beating me up and calling me names and so forth, so maybe this is all not such a good idea. But of course, always Shakti is there as the sweet angel, and Marpa's wife Dakmema was very, very kind to Milarepa and would support him continuously and just you know, talk to him. Okay, it's going to happen soon, and you will receive initiation. Milarepa would ask again and again, please, can I have initiation now? And he would just find another reason not to give him. Yes, maybe you do this, you do that, revive all of these dead people, then you get initiation. Okay, he doesn't know how to do that. Stuff like that. One of the very famous ordeals that Milarepa had to go through is to build 4 towers, one after the other. So this was like basically a wonderful exemplification of what we call karma yoga in the Hindu context. And this karma yoga is basically to achieve a profound state of unification with the divine consciousness through action. Now, this is something that needs to be acquired, and in the meantime, as you're acquiring, karma is burnt. And if you have the karma of having killed 35 people, you can imagine that burning, it might hurt a bit, right? So Marpa put him to build the first tower, a round-shaped circular tower, and as Milarepa is halfway through, and Marpa keeps insisting, with your bare hands. Yeah, so he's carrying stones like a donkey and putting them one after the other and putting foundations and everything alone. He's halfway through, and Marpa's like, yeah, no, I don't really like this tower. Take it down. Takes it back down. Okay, build another one. Now a half-moon shaped tower. Okay, so he starts building this and that. The guru comes along, is half intoxicated, and he's like, oh, well, who had this stupid idea to build this tower? Take it down, this is disgusting. Okay, so he takes it back down. The next tower, triangular shaped, he's like, okay, and if you dare to let anybody help you with this, you will not receive initiation. And of course, what happens? At one point, some of the other disciples of Marpa, they playfully roll down a stone and put it as the cornerstone of the building. They say, come on, we help you a little, we put the cornerstone here. Yeah, and they laugh, they forget about it. He builds the tower, Marpa comes, what is with this stone? This stone you didn't put here. Take the whole thing down and put the stones exactly where they came from. And if you cannot put them back where they came from, you will not receive initiation. So always in this kind of style. Finally, he asks him to build a square-shaped tower of 9 stories, and then, let's put a 10th one on top, and it should be super decorated and very beautiful. And you have to do it all by yourself and with your bare hands, and don't wear shoes. And then he has this completely open back that's completely wounded. He cannot even walk anymore. He has fever. Everything is horrible. And Marpa is like, okay, so maybe you should rest a little bit, but still keep working. And just, you know how the donkeys, they put something on their back to pet it when they have to carry something? Do like this. Yeah, so you can imagine the style. It is pretty harsh. You will also see this attitude of Marpa. It did not last forever, and it's quite interesting to see the shift when it comes in the book, when Marpa is allowed to reveal his real feelings towards Milarepa, because actually he loves him like a son, and then he's crying all the things that he had to do to him and so on. So it's a very interesting story of a relationship between master and disciple. So finally, Marpa gives in. There's a whole lot more to the story. Yeah? I'm just giving you the main points, so it's really still worth to read the book. Many more aspects, especially involving the wife of Milarepa and other students, and how are the initiations going down. Super interesting. And of course, he receives initiation and becomes one of the most amazing disciples of Marpa, because as much as he built those towers with a lot of tenacity, also this is the way that he will practice. And one of the beautiful descriptions in the book is how they would sit in the day, all the disciples, with Marpa and receive initiation, and then the whole night they would practice. And then the next day receive initiation, and the whole night they would practice. So it's quite interesting to see already just at what level the disciples were that just entered into the group of Marpa. Amongst these initiations were these kind of secret methods that some of you have at least a little bit of touch with, like the Mahamudra and Tumo and Pova, which are quite advanced techniques of transference of consciousness, of awakening a specific identification with the inner fire, and of basically learning the Mahamudras, like the great gesture, the great universal gesture, the gesture of supreme consciousness. After the initiations have been conveyed, and for a while Milarepa stays with his master and practices with him, he starts to have an extreme longing for his estranged family that by now he hasn't seen in a long time. So he asks the master if he can go and see his mother one last time. He's begging him, please, just one last time, let me see my mother. And Marpa agrees. And then he says, yes, but this will also mean that this is the last time that we see each other. So it's a quite destiny-loaded moment in his story. And as Milarepa comes home and now has left his master, who is his father basically by then, and the wife who's his mother by then, and so forth, and they give him all the instructions and do like this and do like that, and like go into retreat after and meditate in this way, and he gives them all the instructions, right? And he goes to his home village just to find his home in ruins, and the mother dead, and the sister somewhere wandering in the wilderness. We don't even know what is with her. And it's a horrible moment for him, but also he realizes basically the transience of the world. He sits for 7 days on his mother's corpse, or like bones, whatever is left over there, and then builds a stupa, and finally leaves the world behind completely, going into mountain retreat. And this is another big part of his story, is how then he lives in the Himalayan mountains in many different caves and places, and with incredible perseverance, he's practicing just day and night, basically. And the way he keeps himself full of aspiration is by continuously contemplating that he will surely die, but he doesn't know exactly when. So if he dies tonight, and then he didn't meditate all the time, he would really regret it. So like that, he just finds himself in the state of continuous meditation, basically. And so much so that he basically has these arguments with himself. Okay, should I, now I'm here in the cave, should I maybe go down to the village for a few months, make a little bit of money, buy some provisions, some food, some stuff that I might need, and then I go back into retreat and just stay in retreat, and then I have enough to eat and so forth. And he's like, no, but then, what if I die within those months? And no, that will be just total waste of time. Okay, then he's like, all right, so maybe I'll go in the morning, I go for asking for some alms, for some food down in the village, and then I go back up, I have some food, and that's good. And he's like, oh, no, it's a total waste of time, those hours that I will have to go every day and ask for food. No, this doesn't work. Okay, then, maybe I go hunt a bit, or I go, pick some mushrooms or whatever, some fruits and stuff. And then I have to eat and I can do my retreat. And then he's like, no, but then I have to waste my time finding food. No, that doesn't work. So he concludes, what's the best way to go about things? He finds himself a little spot where he has a lot of nettles, the stingy nettles, and he will eat the nettles and live in the cave, and like this he's not wasting any time. And here you see the green Milarepa. This is something he became very famous for, that actually his whole body, his whole structure started to become green, and even like growing some green hair on top of him, so he really looked like a little nettle worm or something like that. So this was somehow his signature look in his mountain retreat time, and here's a little excerpt from the book. I walked on and found a spot where fine nettles were growing and a little brook ran by. There I could practice the given teachings and meditate. I had a cave there. I lived on nettle soup only and was without clothes. My body was like a skeleton, but green as the nettles I ate and drank, and over the skeleton grew green hair. So that was quite an interesting way of going about things. Within this time he has various encounters with people, because he still also travels between different caves, and he always finds himself a little spot where he finds some nettles, and that's good for him. And they do confuse him with, they get scared that he looks like a wild animal or even like an evil spirit, or some they think he's a caterpillar, just a very large one. So you can imagine how he must have looked. The mountain retreat times is when he goes into a lot of detail about his spiritual path, what he's practicing, how he's practicing, his overall attitude within his practice, everything told in the first person. I find this personally so amazing. And later on, he's also joined by his sister. He finds her finally, and they meet again, and he invites her to come. She's first resisting quite a bit, but eventually, at least partially, she's joining him in retreat. And even one day, she brings the horrible auntie, and they forgive her as well. How wonderful. The latter part of the book is about his late life when he's already a master. So once he came down from mountain retreat, his disciples started to write some accounts as well, but they are mainly centered around his very, very late life. Milarepa came to be 84 years old, and those last few years of his life, he basically taught everything that he knew to quite a large group of people. And those are the last accounts in the book, and they especially focus on how he died, because that was such a miraculous event. We did a whole YouTube video just on his death, so you can just, we'll probably link it somewhere around, and you can just go back to our YouTube channel and check it out. So I will not go into great detail about this now. It's like a huge part of the book. But what is interesting to note is that his sister became one of his closest disciples, together with two very well-known disciples of the Kagyu lineage, which is Gampopa and Ritchung, or Ritchung Pa, as he's also sometimes called. And Ritchung Pa is the one that writes the book that gives the account of the last part of Milarepa's life. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra, and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.